job is to give you a few key takeaways from this quick demo, and if I stay to script, I'll be able to do that in under 8 minutes. First, our team has developed this technology over the last few years from scratch and in-house. We made a pivot from brand management, which is my background, which I'll tell you a bit in a few seconds, into the FinTech market, went head first. It was a good move on our part. We are the first to enter the FinTech with relationship metrics, which you just heard about. We'll give you more information on that very shortly. Some of the relationship metrics you heard a few times today, which is the word trust. Integrity is another. We've had our data validated, and we know that we have something extremely valuable, especially when it comes to environmental, social governance investing, which everybody knows is ESG investing. Anybody know this guy? A little bit on my background. I was a journalist, and then I led communications on a contaminated site that was being cleaned up. It was owned by the Government of Canada and the province of Nova Scotia. Because the contaminants were in people's backyards, emotions were pretty volatile. So we had protesters who were being pepper sprayed, hunger strikes, and there was mountains of media scrutiny, including myself in that. My job was to build trust with the community. So the idea for Orenda grew from that time. Social media was really beginning to grow, and I saw it as a tremendous opportunity, and of course I still do today. Back then, whenever we did something that the community didn't like, they would post it online, and the impact was often swift and severe. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could actually capture that emotion to determine whether or not we were actually building trust. Fast forward to now, and we know that whenever anybody from the public has an emotional response to any company, that in that sea are tremendous, precious trading signals. The magic behind Orenda is timeless. It's built on the knowledge that for any relationship to be considered healthy, we need certain things to exist. This is supported by a large body of social science research that goes back decades. So why that is important is what was true in 1963 will also be true in 2063. What makes us even more unique is that we can do it in real time, tick by tick. And this becomes really important when it comes to ESG. So in a lot of cases, companies are getting quarterly reports or annual reports that are updated manually. We were able to do it in real time. So let's look at the Orenda Impact Index for Lockheed Martin. Behind every percentage is our algorithm interacting, organizing information. So this it has an impact on trust. So whenever there is content that triggers the trust index, we determine what the impact is. And as the emotion changes, the number changes. So we need trust to determine a brand's integrity, right? We also need a few more things, and that's why there's 8 different buckets. So we need to know if we feel a level of commitment between the brand, that the company is giving back to their community, that there's a level of goodness, and that there's bliss or enjoyment that exists over time. So we measure all those factors in real time. Orenda can also determine brand momentum, which is also important. So it's simple to take trust and compare it to other metrics, such as an overall score or corporate social responsibility as another. Inside each metric are more signals so that you can dig even deeper into what is trending up or trending down. With Orenda, you can see, and I'm sure some of you have had this, whether or not you're having a bad day or a bad life. It's really interesting when you pull this into politics as well. So we can leverage anyone's financial data. Currently we're with the FinTech sandbox, which you heard about, and they connect you with data printers. So we're using Thomson Reuters currently. Here you see, and why that is important is that we use Orenda's metrics, combine it with financial data, and then we start to do some really interesting things. Here you see a post from April 11th that pulls Lockheed Martin into the environmental part, which is in particular is the renewable energy. Here is a social one. Here you see it being pulled into a social issue, which they think that you should spend on healthcare versus laser firing drones. And then this falls neatly into governance. Whether or not people felt that this level of compensation was sufficient or over the top, Orenda could tell you in real time. So we videotaped this yesterday. The crypto guys are really upset with CIBC. Here you can go into, you can see where you can dig into this deeper and deeper. You can go into each of the metrics, go down, pull further. You can change that into a couple of days or a couple of months. So you can see what the brand momentum was. That dip there, that's when they were having a really bad day. And you can see the level of engagement, which is also important, because if there isn't enough content, you really want to know whether or not it's a huge issue or not. And you can see that really quickly. Here you can break it down into different maps, so you can see where the conversations are taking place globally. And then you can break it down even further. Here it's Canada, of course, with CIBC. So you can see that it's an issue that is taking more of a position in Ontario. Then you get into dictionary terms. What's important about that is I use the word orange, which is a pretty neutral word, but put it next to Trump and it's something different altogether. When we first started Orenda, we were using shell oil and started pulling in eggshells, seashells, so we said, no, we don't want any of that. And then you can do something even more interesting and pull all that content and do a personality insight into the people who are talking neutrally about CIBC as an example in this case, to see what their personality traits are, what their needs are, and what they value most. So you can do some interesting things if you're combining that with, say, CIBC or RBC, et cetera. And that gives you a breakdown, just because we're not all social scientists, so you can see what those actually mean. The big five being the fundamental part of it. Or we can provide it as an alternative data set. Here you see Lockheed Martin, and underneath are the amount of social media posts, like I said again, in real time. And then we pull that into multi-factor models, so you can see what Orenda's score is compared to closing prices in the financial industry. And we're out of time, so we have to really move quickly. And Bitcoin is another really interesting one for us, because it's a market that is emotionally based, that it doesn't exist with financial fundamentals, so we can pull the emotional context and do some really interesting things, like predicting what the outcomes are hours in advance before the market moves. And thank you so much.